Anybody can use a computer. Lots of criminals use computers. Doesn't make them hackers. I've been mugged at gunpoint. Not once did I think this person was a NRA member or a Second Rights Amendment activist or a gunsmith robbing me with a tool. Computers make it really easy to rob people. So criminals are going to computers. That doesn't make them hackers. They're criminals. There's a difference. I've never heard of a black hat banker being arrested for money laundering or embezzlement. So why do we have the differentiation between hackers, where you've got to show, oh, I'm a black hat hacker or a white hat hacker? Besides, the whole racial origins and stuff of the hat, which is stupid, it's like the whole fact that we go in and talk about that way is to divide and make hackers sound like they need to justify that they're ethical hackers or they're the good kind of hackers. You're a hacker or you're a criminal, period. It's like, and you treat us that, and you should be recognizing that you're a hacker because you are curious. You want to learn. There's people here, and I had a conversation with someone who was talking about some of the stuff they did with business management, and they talked about the audit work and like all the paper stuff and all that office things that just went, That's a vital role in information security and protecting our networks and protecting our, it's not the cool things. It's like, I rob banks for a living. It's fun. And it's a cool thing, but that's not the only thing that you do. It's about communicating that stuff to people, showing them where they can improve those securities, teaching those lessons, becoming that teachable moment for them. It's about education, not exploitation. That's what makes it vital. Every function that you perform in helping protect networks and people is vital. The people who are throwing this conference are trying to get people together to share information, to network. If you just sit in a chair and listen to people yammer on stage all day, myself included, you're wasting your time. You should be connecting with other hackers in the room, networking with other people, trying to share your ideas, getting ideas, trying to figure out a different way that they think, and taking some of their information and some of the stuff that you may not agree with, but using some of those aspects to better your security and the way things that you're thinking through and the processes you're going through. That's why this conference exists. That's why these people are here, and they're trying to throw this conference. And I'm not just talking about those there's people working the cameras, there's people working the mics, there's people working the booths, there's people bringing out food. Those people are vital to make this conference go. It's not just these people on the stage. That's the easy part. And this is the least effective part of my time. I'm selfish. It's like me is just me standing here blobbling at everybody. It's like I get nothing from this. It's like I ramble all the time. It's like, it's like I just got an audience right now. But when I get down and we go into different breaks and we start talking and I start networking and I start hearing your opinions and sharing information with you, that's when I start benefiting. And if you're not benefiting from those conversations, then you're wasting your time. Make it count. Make it more than just a CPE. Share your information and always remember that the person you're talking to belongs here and should be here. And so do you. Yeah, I'm done. I'm clueless. It's like, is there supposed to be some other people coming over here? Is there another person here?
It wins at 9:15.
No, there was supposed to be a guy from 9 to 9:15, the general dude, which I'm supposed to know. Very respectable general person. Is he here? Y'all don't want me to start. If I keep ranting, it gets worse, I promise you, because then I just start saying way more uncomfortable truths, and we don't want that. Do I have any questions? That always gets me in trouble.
What's your favorite color?
Huh?
What's your favorite color?
My favorite color? My favorite color is black because it's all colors, and technically everybody wants to say it's none. It's like, and also it's like that was actually the true state of the universe, is darkness. Light is the aberration that actually creates something from it.
Name and the street you grew up on?
Huh?
How was your mother's maiden name, the street you grew up on?
Oh, there you go. Those are good questions to ask. It's like if I actually used it, if you're actually, one good little tip for cybersecurity 101. If it asks you for your password reset question, what your home city was, you can just say Hufflepuff. As long as you spell Hufflepuff correctly the next time, it works. Why do you have to be honest? It's like, it's just a password reset question. I mean, beware, because I have had to actually say to an actual human being the answer to my password reset questions. And that can get awkward. Okay, I've learned. But if your first car was a pepperoni pizza, then it was a pepperoni pizza. It will work. So never actually fill in the actual answer.
Why do I need 5 years experience for an entry-level cybersecurity job?
Because capitalism sucks really, really bad. And it's like, and they want to find ways to not have to pay people what they're worth. So they put these, I'm sorry, I lie for a living. I don't do it for free. And I don't filter. So what they do is they try to like make establishments of like these made up goals so they can try to devalue the person when they're going into the interview process. So they will accept a lower pay than what they're worth. It's like because they want to get a job. But the requirement is like, every job is like, I have never been, okay, now you're gonna make me start ranting. I have hardly ever been qualified for any job that I've got to. But I have the confidence of a mediocre white man. And it's like, and I keep telling women, people of color, y'all need to start channeling just the power and confidence of a mediocre white man. Because it's like when I get interviewed and they ask me about a technology or something that I don't know, y'all people are honest. Oh, I don't really know about that. No, I'm like, I can learn. I'm a fast learner. Give me a minute and stuff, to Google it, and I'll be one of the best ones. And you get to teach me the way that you want to learn. It's like when you look at these applications and these job requirements, you're actually looking at them and looking to see if you qualify for every single one of them. If I get like the top 5, I'm good.
3.
Yeah, 3. There you go. See, you're already getting it, man. There you go. That's how you roll. Stop self-gatekeeping yourselves. There's enough gatekeeping in this industry. We're hackers. F the gate, jump the fence. Go under the fence. It's like the spoons. There's no spoons. There's no gate except for the one you put to yourself. There are a lot of forks we got to get used to, okay? But there's no spoon. It's like, so start doing that. Start understanding that it's like you're worth more. You know how intelligent you are. You've got the passion to learn. And quite frankly, the passion to learn a new technology and a new thing should trump any kind of piece of paper you've got. Because the piece of paper may get you in the door, but it's your passion and your dedication to learn that keeps you there. Any other? Oh, I got another question.
Just curious, what's the main reason that you got into the whole area of cybersecurity and why are you still?
The reason why I started in cybersecurity, I'm one of those, my origin story is like I started out in physical security and law enforcement. It's like I've always liked giving bad guys bad days. I come from a very traumatic childhood. I mean, I wasn't joking. I'm a high school dropout. I used to live behind a dumpster. And I was raised to be a monster, and I decided in my 20s to not be the monster I was supposed to be, but make sure those monsters don't hurt other people. And so I started doing the security. I started doing the defensive side. And then in 2000, I realized that I could do security and computers, and no one shot at me, which was amazing because I had been shot at. And it's like, it's not pleasant. And it's like, and so then in 2010, I started testing my defenses, testing how my defenses are, because that's the only reason red team exists is to make the blue team better. Screw all that toxic male masculinity you get with red teamers talking about how sexy they are and how breaking all this stuff is. No, that's ridiculous. The only reason you're there is to make the defenses better, to validate the blue team security and make them better. Otherwise, you don't have a job. And if you don't know how to correctly facilitate those reports and answers and communicate that effectively to management, you're wasting everybody's money. It's like they're getting pen tested and red teamed all the time. They're paying you for the report and communicating that effectively to management. It's like, but then I found out in around 2010, I found out I was really good at robbing banks. So I started robbing banks, and I started teaching them, and they hired me and paid me, except for one. It's like, but all those times, it's like it was an accident, and it only happened once. All the others I was supposed to rob. So that's the whole point, is that if you're not in this industry to make things better, please get out. It's like, if you think this is a good career opportunity and it's going to make good money, yes. But if that's it, please get out, because the criminals are having a blast and they're having a great time. And if you're not willing to match that kind of dedication and passion to make them have a bad day, then you're going to lose. And you're going to hurt a lot of people in the process. That's it.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to, if you're not from Tampa, welcome to Tampa. Tampa is having a moment, and I'm pretty excited because that music was making me want to do the robot. Any of you want to come up? We could have some dancing later. I think it'd be very, very good. Well, welcome to CyberCon. We are very, very proud of this, and we're excited about the fact that we're able to have these meetings again. We used to have them before COVID, and now this is our first time getting back together with this. I don't think I have to tell any of you, but in an era when our lives are increasingly dependent on technology, the need for what all of you do cannot be overstated. Our interconnected world faces threats that transcend borders, malign actors seeking to exploit vulnerabilities, compromise data, disrupt essential services. I felt for a moment that my essential service was being disrupted there. The recent hack on Change Healthcare, which is reverberating across the country, is just the latest example, but of course there are many, many, many other examples. Whether it's protecting our critical infrastructure, defending against cyber attacks, ensuring the privacy of our citizens, and as all of you in attendance today know, cybersecurity is not some kind of trendy buzzword, but rather it's a fundamental pillar of our national security. As evidenced by the range of attendees coming here today, these challenges cannot be solved by one group or one specialty alone. It requires a collaborative and intentionally collaborative approach that blends technical solutions with behavioral solutions. And this is where my office, the Office of USF Office of Community Partnerships, can play an important role. So my office serves as a bridge between the University of South Florida and the broader community by engaging diverse community organizations and stakeholders, offering partnership options, streamlining intake processes, and making connections and collaborations much easier. You know that USF was recently invited to join the Association of American Universities. As one of America's leading research universities, we are well positioned to convene and facilitate collaborations among diverse individuals and organizations to solve pressing social problems. And we embrace this role, and events such as this CyberCon is one way that we can help out the community, help our community enhance our digital resiliency. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the academic offerings and the faculty expertise at the University of South Florida available to any of you. Our faculty across multiple colleges are on the forefront of research and teaching related to cybersecurity and artificial intelligence. We offer graduate certificates in AI, we offer a bachelor's degree in cybersecurity, and various boot camps and certificates in cybersecurity, data analytics, big data, data science, and software engineering. And just this week, you may have seen the news, we announced our plans to create the first entire new college in Florida focused on artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and computing. So whether you are interested in accessing student talent in the form of interns or new hires, whether you want to pursue research partnerships with us, or are seeking to upgrade your skills through for-credit degrees or non-credit credentialing, I'm your man. I would be happy to connect with you about how we can work together to meet your goals and to help your organizations be successful. So now I'd like to take a moment to introduce our next speaker, General Frank McKenzie. With a distinguished military background, General McKenzie serves as the Executive Director at the University of South Florida's Global and National Security Institute, as well as the Executive Director of Cyber Florida. His extensive experience and appointments underscore his expertise in safeguarding the digital realm. Having commanded at various levels and led combat deployments, General McKenzie brings strategic acumen and an unwavering commitment to national security, making him a standout presence in the cybersecurity landscape. And personally, perhaps best of all, I observed that General McKenzie has a deep understanding of the intersection of technology, policy, and practice as it relates to the future security of our great nation. Please welcome General Frank McKenzie.
Good morning, everybody. It's great to be here with you today. Tampa's a great place to be this time of year. From November to late March, early April, it's the best place on the planet. Maybe not so much in June and July, but it's a great time to have a conference here right now in March. Again, it's great to get these things going again in a physical sense. We were interrupted by COVID for a period of about 3 years, but we believe this is the first of something we're going to try to do annually, bring people together physically, which I think is actually very important to do. Thanks, Eric, for that wonderful introduction. And before I begin my short remarks, I would like to recognize Representative Kennedy, who's here with us from the Florida Legislature. Her leadership has been critical in cyber and so many other issues, and we look forward to working with you in the future and on down the road. And thanks very much for being here with us today, and it shows your interest in our strong relationship with the legislature and what you've done for Cyber Florida and cybersecurity in general across the state. And it's great to see everybody else here, so many people who are aware and committed to their roles in the world of cybersecurity. The cyber threat is not a Tampa, Florida, or even a U.S. problem. It's a global problem involving internet-connected computing around the world. It can be anywhere. And the threat's twofold, encompassing criminal threat, but also nation-state actors. And often those two are intertwined to a degree that's hard to disaggregate. They steal secrets, military intelligence, counterintelligence information, technological research and design information, economic information, geopolitical information, or any other kind of information that can give a nation-state an advantage over the United States. Any of these items can damage our national security of the U.S., and we're very much aware that we're on the front edge of this battle in cyberspace. Our enemies are coming at us through our businesses, our universities, and social media. Their tactics represent a new and unique domain of a Cold War, where nation-states harvest the data we all volunteer by engaging with the internet daily, and they use that information to socially engineer people to gain access to systems that are both public and private. And then they steal that information and gather more data, and as you know, it's the exact opposite of a virtuous circle. It's a very dangerous, deadly circle that operates against us. In the world of cybercrime and cyber espionage, everyone is a potential conduit to the information that threat actors are after. We're all a target, and as such, we each have a role to play in defending our national security. That's why it's so gratifying to see such a diverse group of people here today, representing both the public and the private sectors, as well as students, our future cyber warriors. This event aims to educate while building a community of people and organizations committed to better cybersecurity practices. Here we have the intellectual resources and the time to dive into tactics, techniques, and behaviors that affect us all. I want you to take advantage of the opportunity that we have here today and tomorrow to connect, to share information, and work together to make us all a little bit safer in cyberspace. It's now my pleasure to introduce a tremendous ally in the Cyber Florida community, Ms. Pam Lindemone. Pam is a CISO advisor for Cisco, but also dedicates part of her busy schedule to being the co-host of Cyber Florida's Do We Belong Here podcast and participating in many Cyber Florida events as a mentor and an advocate for students and young professionals. On behalf of Cyber Florida, we're grateful for Cisco's sponsorship of this event and for Pam's personal dedication to supporting the mission of Cyber Florida. Let's give her a big welcome. Pam. Thanks, Pam.
Thank you, General McKenzie. It's always a pleasure to share a stage with someone with the caliber that that gentleman has. Let's give him another round of applause. You know, when you're given an opportunity to make a difference globally, locally, or even in your own home, you take it. I've had that mentality throughout my career, and I've been in positions in my 28 years in IT to do so. Sometimes blindly, sometimes I'm asked, but most of the time I try to just be who I am and represent women in IT. I, as a security professional, went through a very difficult event. It was a nation-state attack. I was a key advisor to the litigation process afterwards, but I designed, developed, and built a security program before, during, and after said attack. I like to tell my friends in security that I was a survivor. I think we have a few survivors in the room, probably. That's why when I had the opportunity to step back and look for a new position to really give back to my community in IT, I wanted to go somewhere that would really look at the security problem in a different manner, to really open my eyes and help with my experiences the world. I found Cisco 3 years ago. Their mission of connect, protect, and secure was simple. It's backed by one of the largest threat intelligence divisions in the world. And make no mistake, what they don't build or invest in the security community, they buy. You might have heard a little acquisition that we did recently with Splunk. We've been looking to change the dynamics in security for some time now. We've been leaning into AI before it was cool, machine learning throughout our product lines before people started talking about it. And we're leaning in hard to change the landscape for the defenders. That's where I want to be. That's where our customers need help. That's where our partners like Cyber Florida are trying to change the landscape for all of us. Not only am I there for the security work that we're doing in the world, I'm also there because Cisco believes in inclusivity. It is the very heart of what we do. Our purpose is simply to make the world more inclusive by powering it with technology. This representation and inclusion is not just a metric at Cisco. It's something we truly believe in. They've given me a platform to really talk about this, to work with partners like Cyber Florida, the state of Florida, all throughout the country and the world. Where's my friend Serena? If you could stand up. Serena, if you have not met this lovely woman, she is the producer of the Do We Belong Here podcast. And it was her vision to give a space for women to talk about their challenges and to see themselves in cybersecurity. It is her dream that we are all living and working towards. That's why I'm a part of this particular partnership. I also have a co-host who could not be with us today, but she's here in spirit, and I hope to do her proud. She's on the board of the Black Girls in Cyber. She currently works at Meta as a cybersecurity practitioner, and she wrote a best-selling book. If you haven't gotten it, please reach out to her and get it. It's Secure Our Future. The Black Girls in Cyber Collective, a lot of women put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into that, and it gives you a great perspective. Over the last year, we've been working tirelessly on a small project that's coming soon. And we want to take all of the conversations that we've been having throughout the past year and share it with our community through a documentary. We hope and we believe that this will bring stories to the forefront so that young girls, young women see themselves in cybersecurity. I'd like for you to think about the next 2 days and why you're here. We want you to really look around and see if you see the diversity we need in our space. Ask yourselves throughout the next 2 days what you can do to make change, how you can help us. Are we as a group, a collective, doing enough to bring young women into this space, to give us that lens that we need? We invite you over the next couple of days to expand your perspective and consider this as you learn and you grow. Now, I cannot imagine a better person to give you a new perspective than the next keynote. Win Schwartau. Win is an icon in the industry. He's a perfect example of always learning, always evolving. At age 6, his mother gifted him a set of encyclopedias. I'm in cyber. How could I not know it? He's never forgotten the lessons to always learn, to learn. He did that when he started in the industry, and the world was changing. It's still changing. Today, he's going to talk to us about meta-war. Well, Win, you've gotten our attention. Everyone welcome to the stage, Win Schwartau.
Good morning. You got to wake me up here. All right, everybody's talking about change and adaptation, and my job now is to let's redefine security completely for what has occurred just in the last 2 or 3 years. And it began with an idea. I said, oh, here comes the metaverse. I wonder what the security and privacy implications are. And I thought it was going to be a nice, easy, technical exercise. Boy, was I ever wrong. And it fundamentally changed me as a human being. It fundamentally changed my worldview to give me an entirely different perspective of what we're really going up against. Big tech is digitally terraforming this planet to their view of what it should be, and that includes our cognitive infrastructure. It's a completely new cybersecurity world. Some 35 years ago, I started this thing, or thought I did, called information warfare. CIA, FBI, government wasn't too happy with me because they thought it was all classified, and apparently it was. What did I know? But at that time, Congress and unfortunately too many leaders from the military to the private sector and the government said, Win, you're a Chicken Little. None of this is going to happen. What do you mean we're going to have cyber war between nations across the planet? You're out of your mind. Well, unfortunately, too many things came true. that I really wish had not. And now, as we are digitally terraforming the planet, we got one more chance to get it right. We will not be given another. Meta-war. Reality is only a keystroke away these days. This is about our minds. Meta-war is about the battle for our belief systems, for what is truth, what is reality, what is it? Nobody can really agree on it except that each of us has our own. The techniques and the art and science of meta-war exploit some of the technical things we've talked about, but we're going to go into the new land of cybersecurity. Number one, what is the metaverse? Nobody really knows. There's lots of different definitions. You got Ready Player One, cool. You got Neil Stephenson, cool. And you have all these wonderful applications that are being talked about that will allow us to immerse ourselves into a new reality, a reality that will distort and be distorted for the goals and aims of those who are digitally terraforming the planet for us. There's some good stuff and some bad stuff, but I tend to view that the metaverse is the most powerful and addictive reality distortion machine ever created by mankind, and it will remain that way unless we, in the cybersecurity community, policymakers and governments around the planet decide to say, that's too much. We're going too far. The metaverse, they want you to believe it's all this immersion stuff, but metaverse is really about immersion. You can be immersed thoroughly in that great novel you're reading. You can be completely immersed in that TV show. And the only reason that you get pulled out of that reality is you're going to sip on a drink or reach for the potato chips, and suddenly you realize you're no longer part of that multimedia experience. You have just been removed from it, and after you have your chip or your drink, you're back in it. Immersion creates belief systems, and we've been doing this for hundreds of years. One of the greatest examples that you all know is Orson Welles, where he gave an audio-only radio talk in 1938 that caused thousands of Americans to bring out their rifles to shoot the Martians. Belief. He altered the reality of thousands, if not millions of people for that 1 hour on that broadcast. And we've been evolving technology more and more to get us further into that IMAX immersion, the VR, AR immersions. But those are not required for the metaverse. The metaverse is social media once you get immersed into it. And we have all the tech that's coming along, and ultimately we may end up with a holodeck kind of thing at some distant point, and then that would satisfy Neil Stephenson, that would satisfy Ready Player One, Philip Dick's work, and maybe Mark Zuckerberg's, who knows. And where do we end up? That point is called the meta point, at which reality, our consensual hallucination around us, is no longer distinguishable from that which we are immersed in. And that is where we're headed, and that is part about what the digital terraforming of the planet is. This evolved into what I call the meta-war thesis. Very, very simple. Storytelling is supposed to be a compelling narrative to engage you and create an immersive experience, and it can be done by text, multimedia, voice-only, podcasts. And the whole point of it is to create a reality distortion, to get you involved inside of it, to become part of it, for entertainment, to enjoy it, to have that other life that's a little different than the one we have. And one of the biggest techniques that we're going to explore is TMI, too much information, because TMI is the leading cause, which I will show you, of disinformation and misinformation that is surrounding us right now. Because what does that do? That creates the ability to manipulate people through altering the reality, altering their sense and belief of what is going on around them. And as we've all seen from the 8-year-old girls, reward. And what does reward do? Reward ultimately creates addiction. Digital opioid addiction is what we are experiencing right now. We've seen it. We're seeing kids with self-harm. We're seeing depressions, the mental health issues that are coming along because of these issues, ultimately with addiction. And the only way that people feel comfortable then is with compliance. And once you have compliance, you have belief. Game over. That's what we are building right now, and we have one chance to get it right. There's 3 classes of meta war, similar to with information warfare, the personal one, and we're going to be talking about the loss of PII. PII is going to disappear. You're not going to need to care about it anymore. You have something much more profound to worry about. PIB, personally identifiable behavior that is currently being sucked up every time we touch technology. Class 2, enterprise. Enterprises have exactly the same issues. If they are targeted, what can be done? Reputational, financial interests. We have seen this in information warfare. Now we're going to see it with meta war. And ultimately, the 6th domain of conflict will be class 3, where it'll be NGO and nation state. So this shows how the influences work. It's nothing new. It's the same thing we did with information warfare modeling 35 years ago. But is this real? For those of you not familiar, the Soviet journalist, propagandist, wrote this 45 years ago. 45 years ago. What are we experiencing today? Did we have a warning? Did we ignore it? I got invited to the Soviet Academy of Sciences to study Russian information warfare back in the early 90s. But because I'm an unclassified civilian, various portions of the intelligence community decided it would be better to make my life miserable, and I never had that opportunity to really learn what the theories of Bezmenov were and how powerful they actually are. So we need to understand what's going on inside of us. You always need to understand the adversary. You also need to understand what is going on the playing field. And the playing field here is our mind. Our number one job as human beings is to survive. The only way that we do this is by being able to predict the future. Just like silicon systems are time-based, our brains, our physiologies are all time-based systems. But the big takeaway on this slide is notice where it says processing power for unconscious. 400 billion bits of processing per second. That's a boatload. Yet we have 2 to 4 kilobits of conscious awareness. Who's in charge of our brains? We have 2 sets of realities. One is our objective, consensual reality. Yes, that's a ceiling. This is wind. This is a stage. Yes. But everything else is subjective. And that subjectivity and the manipulation of our subjectivity and our belief systems through manipulation in the current iteration of the metaverse creates a schism. And the schism goes from 2 extremes of belief, binary belief systems. I absolutely, without question, 100,000% believe this, or I don't believe it. For those of you familiar with my work, I am totally against anything that is binary, because I don't believe in binaryism. It doesn't really exist much in physics. It doesn't exist in too many portions of our world, much less with us as human beings. It doesn't exist. So one of the things we have to learn is, how do we work? How do we perceive the world? And we perceive the world and react to it based upon our senses, the 5 normal senses that we're quite used to around us. And then we also have a couple of others that are called, one's called equilibrium. It's equilibrium. It's your cochlear ear talking to your eyes. And that's what keeps us vertical, keeps us with balance. We've got proprioception. How do I relate to the outside world? How can I, as a meta warrior, distort that for my goals? And then we have interoception, which is the going-ons inside of us. That sudden adrenaline-driven fear. Interoception that affects our thinking just as much as any conventional external sense. And I'm glad there's some military folks here, because so much of my work involves OODA loops. OODA loop, very simple, created 1984, Maxwell Air Force Base by Colonel John Boyd. And he says the only way to survive an aerial dogfight is to get inside of your adversary's loop, and that means speed. The loop, OODA, O, observe what's around. Second O, orient. How do I fit in to this environment that I observe? The D is the decide. How will I react? And he did this with the dogfighting model. And then finally, the A is act. Every system, whether it's physical, biological, silicon, all use OODA loops for their own survival. Without an OODA loop, systems die. So now we're adding into our world, because of the tech companies that are building this, we're adding tracking. Much more tracking, facial tracking, muscular tracking, iris tracking, saccadic movement. We can go through all of them. But that provides the basis for personally identifiable behavior. And once whoever collects the data, has that information, is that or is that not more valuable than PII? The loops, how we react to these loops, how simple sensory data ties in and then creates our actions, our decisions, and then they measure them through whatever technology is going on, whatever they're using, doesn't really matter, it's going to only get more. And they create what is called active meta-content orchestration. When you build, I used to be a recording engineer, so we'd have a live concert or an album, and you have the horns and the pieces, and you orchestrate it. A movie is orchestrated. TV show is orchestrated. A video game is orchestrated. With the technologies that are coming out now, that many of which already exist, we are being systematically orchestrated through OODA loops and the meta-war thesis all the way down through complete addiction. And one of the things that many people don't know is how blind we really are to our senses. And during those blind spots of our physiology, we have the ability right now to implant ideas, implant data, implant behavioral changes, and manipulate the unconscious mind much more than social engineering. Much, much more. You'll see a couple of social engineering talks here. Very, very valuable, very needed, but we're looking way beyond this because now it's the unconscious mind. How do I mess with that? And what can I do? with the technologies today and those that are being developed, I will be able to create any emotional response in you I choose. That to me is pretty damn scary. Yet we're allowing it to happen. And if you don't think it's happening, Apple's patent from last July, there are new earbuds that they're going to be coming out with in a couple of years, have up to 38 biosensors built into the ears. And what's that going to do? They're going to know exactly how you respond to any stimulus. Do you want that? Should we have that? We have the data. We know how our carbon-based systems work. We have a reasonable idea how the silicon systems work. Now we're gluing them together. Yet humanity was never designed to be tied to silicon systems. We now can read the mind, not with precision, it'll get better. The picture on the right is a reconstruction of a person's thought looking at the image on the left. You can do it with music, can do it with sound, we can do it with text. Where is it going to go? And what happens to your sense of reality? That's going to be up to all of us as to how well we decide to strengthen our cognitive immune system. Then we add in AI. We built AI in our own image, and we don't like what we see. You're going to hear some AI talks. I may show up at a couple of them. Please be pre-warned. AI is really, really great if you don't care that the answer could be wrong. If you don't care, close is good enough. For a language app translating, that's awesome. For decision making for life and death, no. And this is who AI thinks I am apparently the captain of the USS Enterprise. And despite what you're going to hear about AI from some folks around here, unfortunately, this is where we are today. Reliance upon AI is a mistake. Utilization of AI technologies for amplification, for filtering, for prediction, for those things that can be wrong are fine. But I apply Asimov's robotic laws to this because right now AI is doing a ton of harm, as we're seeing through social media. I was down at CES in January and everything was AI. And I asked a lot of vendors this question. Not one vendor had an answer because they never asked the question. As Jason was saying, curiosity means questioning, asking the hard questions, the uncomfortable ones, knowing full well that the answers may be, we can't do that. Our cybersecurity job now has a new attack surface. That is what you are going to have to learn how to defend if you're going to stay in cybersecurity. Humans were not built to integrate with technology. We were built to survive rainstorms, the charging lion, to be able to climb a tree and get away from natural threats to our physical being. There was not an information society that existed 12, 15, 40,000 years ago. The information society didn't begin until very, very recently. But the job never changed. Back then, we were supposed to survive the jungle, the savannah. Today, we need to learn how to survive and coexist with technology. And our job number one is again the same: to survive And I suggest that based upon what we are currently seeing from the studies out of the neuroscience communities, out of the psychological communities, out of the experiments that are being done worldwide, we're doing a really poor job. We have two brains. And system one, this is using Daniel Kahneman, the great philosopher's terminology. System one is what's kept us alive as a species for 50,000 years, whatever the number is. System two is what we need to survive technology. Remember, system one is operating at 400 billion bits per second. System two only has 2 to 4 kilobits per second. Yet we're supposed to survive. We're supposed to survive with technology. Our fundamental way of survival has been what is called the 6 F's. And it's trauma, fear, flight, it's up there. Those are the 6 that have kept humanity alive throughout its existence. However, along comes technology. And what preparation has humanity had for any degree of coexistence to be able to survive it? And that's where the cognitive defense network, which we do have, but we have never strengthened. Because we as humans don't understand it. These are our fundamental reactions to technology. We all have slightly different ones. And we know some people that are the technophobes and the techno-joys. All of these different emotions to something that we have had subjected to us since roughly the 1950s. We also have got algorithmic anxiety. Right now, who's making decisions for how much of what we do? The algorithm. The AI algorithm makes decisions for us. If you're comfortable with that, cool. I'm not. I'm absolutely uncomfortable with it because it keeps me out of the loop, the OODA loop of my own decision making. The additional stressors that we've put on us. We're a stressed society. In the last 5, 6, 8 years, we are stressed to the max. Some of it's FOMO. Batteries. How many people actually have extra batteries with them because of the pure fear that their phone may run out? And then you've got the like button. The like button, one of the most addictive switches that we have ever created, because every time that like button is pressed or seen, it releases dopamine into your system. Addiction. Hard addiction. Then we've got, finally, TMI, too much information. What was it, 1956? 5 megabytes, 5 tons, a ton of megabyte. And now we're off into beyond the petabytes and the exabytes. How much data is there? The amount of data that we go through and are exposed to every single day is completely overwhelming and undigestible by any single human being. Yet that's what we're expected to do. TMI is a complete info glut, too much information overload. We've all experienced it. I went through it 2 weeks ago. My wife finally said, go down to Mexico and chill out for a week. And I actually hung out with my grandson for 5 days and had an absolute ball. What we're looking at is, from my old audio career, signal-to-noise ratio. If we have the amount of signal that is of value to my brain versus the amount of total information out there, we can't deal with it. TMI creates this information, and we have the actual studies, the mathematical models right now to show how this works. These studies are only 2 years old. A lot of the stuff I'm going to show you is only in the last 8 to 24 months. And what ends up happening is before AIs and bots, disinformation from too much information was created by humans, and you can see how the charts there work on the left. However, AI and bots are force multipliers. For you military folks, you know exactly what that means. It means you're out of control again, force multiplying by the algorithm. You have nothing to say about it. It's doing it on its own, and it's doing it to you. We have to coexist within these quadrants. We're all familiar with the knowledge quadrant, and this is exactly what we're facing right now with current versions of the metaverse and especially what's coming down the pike. What we need to do is engage system 2. We need to be able to turn it on more than we currently are. And as Jason was saying, curiosity and questions are what actually neuronically turn on system 2. So on the left, we've got our typical OODA loop, and I see stuff and I react. I see stuff and I react. I hear a car and I stop to take, okay, it's not going to hit me, I'm good. Or it's a distant sound, I don't have to really pay attention to it. I have a very, very fast filtering system in system 1 for traditional survival. What we need to do is engage system 2 by putting in a pause. It's that simple. Put in a pause into our cognitive processes. Because what we want to do is to get our brains to be able to do a little bit of self-healing. We do not have that in our cognitive immune system. That is not native to us. It's something that we need to build into a strengthening model, because it's not neither only system 1 or only system 2. It's a constant exchange back and forth of the involvement of the decision-making and executive functions in our brain. And this models how we do things in cybersecurity. Simple time-based security model for double-checking something before taking an action. Not terribly complicated, something we've been doing, I guess since the late 90s to varying degrees. Same thing will work with the brain, with cognitive stimulus. System 1 is receiving all of that. But how do I engage system 2? By pressing pause, and there are techniques for that which I'll show you. And then engaging system 2, the thought process. Does that make sense? Is that an AI? Is that a human being? Do I even care about this headline, or am I just being clickbaited into it because it's reached into one of those addiction points that they've programmed into me? Pressing pause means grabbing attention. Attention economy, you've heard the phrase, advertisers, they want your attention. All the platforms out there, they want to addict you to staying on their platform because your only value to them is your presence on the platform. That is the only value you have. And in order to keep you there, they addict you. So a number of people started questioning, what is going on with this whole silicon carbon thing? Back in 1961, a fairly unknown psychologist proposed the concept of mental inoculation. And I object to the word inoculation completely. But the point was, he was able to distinguish that there were mechanisms, although neuroscience didn't really exist yet, to be able to engage system 2. 6 years ago, 2 Dutch scientists who were working up at the Cambridge University said, I wonder if we could. And they decided, let's play a game. And the first game that they made is called Bad News. And it's called pre-bunking. And it's a game that involves people asking themselves questions. Is it real? Is it not real? Can I make up my own lies? Can I convince other people of my lies? Fake news, disinformation, misinformation. And this has expanded into some studies where over a period of years, 3 million people through one gaming experience were able to distinguish disinformation and BS 51% better after only one 7-minute game. And like anything else with time degradation curves we have in cybersecurity, you have to reinforce it on a periodic basis. Sounds like security awareness. And then after the pause button, after that pause occurs, what can we do? That gets into traditional training, that gets into security awareness, that gets into anything that you're really, really trying to teach. And again, it's two OODA loops that are talking to each other and having to integrate with each other in order to be able to have some sense of conscious adjudication of your environment. So some games are doing a thing called depict and using traditional, the politicians do it all the time. They'll go, Senator, what do you think of this? Well, that's wrong because whoever said that's an idiot. There are 6 fundamental techniques that are used for dissuasion and persuasion for particular types of audiences that have particular belief systems that have not yet had strengthened cognitive immune systems. Wonderful lady, Dr. Tressa King, is doing the logical fallacy games. We have a whole series of these that are becoming available, that are being tested quantitatively. These are being measured in order to understand the effects, the positive effects or the negative effects, the longevity effects, the intensity. This is a brand new study because cybersecurity is becoming an entirely new game. Yes, social engineering, but take social engineering and cube it or 4th power it or 5th power it. We're talking an immense amount of control over the human mind by big tech because it's in their interest to do that. PIB is going to replace PII. It's going to talk back and forth to our common senses. It's going to talk up to the cloud if we allow it. And even Zuckerberg's company, even they admit it publicly. Yeah, we got to addict you. We have to do this. We have to give you massive negative headlines in order to keep you on our platform. Do we want that? Social addiction. It's dopamine. It's the same chemical sort of release that we get from opioids. Yet it is a perfectly socially acceptable technique to use on our children. I got a problem with that one. Reality distortion. We're going to have to come to some sort of consensus sooner or later as to how much reality distortion is acceptable. How far into the brain? Okay, it's a good movie, but is it really screwing with your brain, like Bezmenov was talking earlier, or propaganda, or some of the government efforts that have been done over the last 70 years of how do you make a Manchurian candidate? How do you get inside of somebody's head? At the national level, God, we have an awful lot of work to do. Number one, people got to accept that this is real. National immunity programs. And this is not about getting vaxes and shots. It's about a mindset. It's a mindset of realizing that cybersecurity and the protection of critical infrastructure and national security and our very well-being, our own mental well-being, requires a different view than we have had. And I've been in this field 43 years now. It's going to require something new. We have some of the techniques. We understand what has worked. We understand what has not worked. And now we have an entirely new army of people, the social scientists, psychologists, and neuroscientists to be able to rely on. Oddly enough, the attack vectors and decision vectors and fixes between the silicon systems and the carbon systems, they map each other very, very closely. And the more I got into it, the more I realized we're not going to do this alone. We need an awful lot of people from a lot of different disciplines because we're no longer talking about bits and bytes. We're talking about neurons firing. We're talking about belief systems. We're talking about fundamentally altering what it means to be a human being and who we're giving control over that to. The meta-war thesis is pretty darn simple. It's in itself another OODA loop. In this case, it's not 4, it's 8. But it's still that cycle that allows power and influence over those that are caught up inside that loop. Meta-war means defending and strengthening our mental immune systems. It should be our new mandate because reality is only one keystroke away. I'll be here for the week, for the show, be happy to discuss any of this with you at all at any time, and I thank you for your attention. I appreciate it.